Hello people, thought I'd make a quick video. Hopefully you can hear me alright, but I thought I'd get this video out because I'm not sure when you'll be hearing from me again. Ever since I started posting about my experience a few years ago when I encountered a non-human entity. I don't know whether it was an alien or a demon, I'm not sure. But I've been stalked by people and other things, and it's getting to the point where I don't know whether I'll end up going missing. If people don't believe me, that's cool, but I need to get as much information out as I can. A few years ago, I encountered a non-human entity, and that's what I'm calling it, because I don't know whether it was a alien, and I'm not sure whether it was a like a demon. I'm nearly 99% sure that it was definitely not an angel. If it was an angel, then I don't know. So just outside of Toowoomba, I'm not going to name the precise location yet, but we'd been living in the house for approximately 8 years. Within those 8 years, we had experienced a few different things that seemed a little strange, a little off. One of our daughters at the time had became friends with a invisible friend. She had started talking to this invisible friend, and the invisible friend told her that she did not like her father, and this invisible friend also told her to make I don't know what other word you could describe it, but a monument that I have photos of it, and I'll share those photos at a later date if I can. But the monument was like a like a pyramid, I guess, and my daughter had also experienced seeing like a figure coming out of the roof or out of the wall, and she also experienced one night, she thought that her mother came into her room and had taken her iPad away. The next morning, she asked her mother why did she take her iPad away, and my wife at the time said she didn't go in her room and she didn't take her iPad away. Sorry about the video footage, but I'm just doing this by my mobile phone, and I just want to get this out. My son had also experienced something where where he was at work or away one day, and he came home and he thought that one of his sisters had come home, and he tried to talk to her from a distance, and she went in one of the rooms and he followed her, and when he went into the room there was no one in there, and then a couple of minutes later the sister had actually come home, and he asked her, he talked to her and he said, I thought you'd came home earlier, and she said, no, I just got home. So obviously he had seen like a figure that he thought was his sister that wasn't his actual sister. All these things happened at this place just outside Toowoomba. And then my own experience was one night I was getting ready for bed. I was in the bathroom, one of the bathrooms, and had just finished brushing my teeth and shaving or whatever. And I'd walked just outside of the bathroom to the hallway, looked down the hallway, and I saw a figure that I thought was one of my daughters. We have 6 children, by the way. And so I talked to what I thought was my daughter. I asked her how her night was going. I didn't get a reply, which, with 5 daughters and a son, having 5 daughters, you know sometimes that girls can have their, sometimes, for whatever reasons, they can, like everyone, I guess, get in the moods and whatever. And I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought she was just having a quarrel with one of her other sisters or an argument. And so I asked her again. I said something like, "Are you okay?" And I saw that in the background was her TV was on, but it was weird. It was like a black and white screen that you used to see when you were growing up. Like before a program would come on, you'd see the black and white screen, and then I would, and then I said to her again, "Are you okay? Are you having a bad night?" But I got no answer, so I started to walk down the hallway. And as I got closer, about the middle of the hallway, I went through something that could only be described as a invisible wall. I could feel it, I couldn't see it, but I could, when I went through it, I felt different. Like immediately I got vertigo and dizzy. But at that time I didn't think anything of it, and I kept walking down towards who I thought was my daughter, right? And then as I got about an arm's length away, I saw this hooded figure. And having 6 children, they're always playing tricks and mucking around, and I thought, okay, so one of them has a costume and whatever. But as I put my arm out to sort of, touch and sort of poke this, what I thought was my daughter, what are you doing? This head popped up from the hood, and immediately I saw and I knew that this was not my daughter. And I could see it sort of holding half the hood over its face, but I could see this huge black eye, and something told me straight away that this was not my daughter. Now, anyone who's been following me, been following my journey, knows that at the age of 9 years old, I learned how to box. My father was a boxing trainer. I had my first boxing fight when I was 9 years old. I was asked to turn professional at the age of 17. Okay, so I'm afraid of no man. I know that sounds whatever, but coming from a boxing family, having a boxing fight when you're 9 years old, and having many fights up until the age of 19, you don't really fear a lot, okay? And, okay, but something told me, I don't know how to explain it, but something told me not to mess with this thing. So I backed up immediately, up against the wall, and we just started looking at each other. It may have only been for a minute, okay? And then all of a sudden this thing sped off into my daughter's room, leaving behind it its cloak, its hooded cloak. As the cloak fell to the ground, it disappeared in front of me. It disappeared in front of my eyes. I knew that what I was experiencing, call it whatever you want, paranormal, supernatural. I was so frightened. Me, the big boxer, I was petrified. But then I thought to myself, okay, what if my daughter is in that room still? So I got up the courage and I poked my head around the corner to see if my daughter was still in the room. My daughter wasn't in the room that I could see, but this thing was, okay? The thing that I remember the most was this thing's hair. I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds, what are you talking about? But this thing's hair was like waving, like you'd see hair underneath water. It was moving like that. And then this thing started looking up in the sky, or up in the up on the roof, like it was looking for something. It was scanning for something. And then it must have felt that I was watching it, yeah? So it started to turn its body around to face me. And I don't know how to describe it, to describe it. And you may think, oh, whatever, man, you're supposed to be this big boxer, but you couldn't face this thing. No, I couldn't. So I ducked back around and I cowered up against the wall, just hoping that this thing would just leave. And I don't know how long it was, but I got up the courage again to look back inside the room. And when I looked back inside the room, the thing was gone. It had gone, vanished. That was my supernatural and paranormal experience, whatever you want to call it. Do I think it was a demon or an alien? I have no idea. But after that experience, I leave everything on the table. Everything on the table. And I ask you, what would you have done in my situation?